but I'm glad that I'm on here now.
Great. Great. Hi, Rana.
Hi, how are
So
you?
good. So we're excited to be here and talk about partnerships. And I think we should maybe go ahead and jump into it. Rana, would you like to go ahead and start with introducing yourself and your organization and what you do at Google?
Yeah, for sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Rana Abdelhamid, and I'm the Global Marketing and Partnerships Lead for Women Tech Makers, which is Google's Women in Tech brand. Women Tech Makers has a community of over 200,000 women across 190 countries. We're dedicated to supporting women to thrive in the tech industry, and we exist because there isn't equality for women in the tech industry right now, and there is a lack of representation both for women tech founders and women in the corporate space, women who are studying to become computer scientists, to become developers, and we want to ensure that there's community for women as they're entering the tech industry.
Great, thanks. And hi, everyone. My name is Beeta Ehdaie. I'm a senior advisor in the Bureau of Economic and Business Affairs here at the U.S. State Department. I serve as gender advisor and lead for our Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative called POWER, providing opportunities for women's economic rise. And in this role, I've had the opportunity to work with private sector colleagues such as Rana and foreign governments to try to break down the gender barriers we're seeing in entrepreneurial ecosystems in order to be able to support more women entrepreneurs and founders to help a larger goal of economic growth. At the U.S. State Department, I want to give you guys a little bit of an overview of what the POWER initiative is about before we jump into our discussion. But POWER looks to engage the U.S. private sector and really leverage the U.S. diplomatic missions to help build transboundary and global professional networks that female entrepreneurs can utilize to help scale and grow their businesses. POWER is multi-tiered, and so within that first tier, POWER promotes women's economic empowerment, working through U.S. Embassy-led projects. And then within that second tier, POWER looks to support the department's economic policy dialogues, specifically on issues related to gender-related economic issues. And this tiered approach enables POWER to be able to better program in alignment with U.S. economic and foreign policy goals to help support global economic prosperity, while also highlighting key economic issues that directly affect women's ability to successfully participate in the economy. And so working across these tiers also enables us to identify areas where we can engage the private sector in our policy work and in our programmatic work through our missions. So to kick our conversation off today, we're very excited to talk about partnerships. We first want to maybe talk a little bit about what are some of the key challenges in the private sector and the public sector that the private sector and the public sector leaders are working on to tackle some of these social issues. I guess I'll start, and then I'll turn to you, Rana. I really want to first speak to the market force that women entrepreneurs we're seeing that they are. They are fueling the economic growth by creating new business ventures, job opportunities for their communities at large. And you can really see this, especially during this time, during the global pandemic. They have not only been at the front line for this pandemic as healthcare workers, but as they're taking risk and turning it into opportunity by developing these new business ventures and being able to pivot to support local economies, and essentially are saving lives in multiple different ways. However, we do know that they face some serious challenges and barriers. Women entrepreneurs globally lack access to markets, market information, digital and personal services, networks, mentors, and all these other resources that really would enable them to overcome certain barriers and start growing their firms and going internationally, expanding their businesses. As with things like access to capital and finance, some of the barriers that women are facing are systematic and others are more individualized. So there's three areas I would love to highlight. One is the global credit gap that women entrepreneurs face. Women-owned businesses are limited due to unequal access to capital that they need to establish and expand their businesses. The global credit gap for small and medium enterprises is roughly about $300 billion. However, if you look at US SMEs, you see that they contribute to 1.6 million net new jobs in 2019. So imagine if you can address that credit gap, what you would be adding to the economy. Two is access to market. Women face barriers in accessing international markets, including barriers to finance and resources. With domestically, if we look at it, 30% of American businesses are owned by women. But when you look at US businesses that are exporting, only 12% of those are owned by women. So both of these numbers are too small. And again, look what you could be achieving if you're able to increase those numbers. Finally, we have to close the digital gender divide. There's no arguing that. We see that now more than ever with the pandemic. The importance of digital platforms, e-commerce, and the digital economy as a whole has never been more apparent. And it's right now as new enterprises find new ways to do business that we need to ensure that women are online. So I'll stop there. Rana, what are your thoughts?
To build on what you said, and of that also drives a lot of what we're doing at Women Tech Makers, particularly the digital divide and the many ways that in which it manifests. When you talked about capital, right, and access to resources, one of the biggest things that we talk about within, just Silicon Valley and tech companies is that only 2% of venture capital funding went to women in 2019, which is like such a massive gap, right? When you think about the distribution of funding, when you think about who has access to the resources to be able to start these tech companies that are so important to our economy right now. When we think about kind of just like who even exists within the tech industry, who's making the decisions, right? According to data that was released by the National Center for Women in Information Technology, women only made up 26% of the tech industry in 2019, and only 3% of all computing jobs were held by Black women. And so thinking about this also intersectionally, we know that women of color, Black and brown women, don't have access to the same type of resources. And so, so for us, we think a lot about what are the barriers, right, that don't allow for women to have access to this capital, that don't allow for women to have access to these job opportunities. And we think about these opportunities as opportunities that would create like a massive shift in economic and in creating an equal economic playing field, because there is so much opportunity within the tech industry, right, that would allow for us to close the poverty gap, to close the opportunity gap, to close the wage gap. And so one of the things that we also think about, as an example, is just women's safety online, right? And during the pandemic, this increased as a challenge, obviously, because a lot more people are online, a lot more women are online, and women are more susceptible to online violence, with 20 women being 27 times more likely to experience online violence. And we always say, if you can't be safe online, why would you enter that industry, right? Why would you want to start a tech company? Why would you want to upload and become a creator, right, or an influencer in these such important fields that we know are a huge part of our economy? And so I'll leave it at that. But I'm super excited by the potential, right, of public and private partnerships for us to continue to be bold and to continue to be creative in how we're thinking about solutions to some of these challenges.
Yeah, no, and on that note, kind of thinking about how we can work together to move the needle on this issue, I love that you brought up public-private partnerships, because I think that that's a really important and strong tool that we can use to help address some of these gender barriers, particularly in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. I know at the U.S. Department of State, we're constantly exploring how we can encourage, support, and sustain global partnerships between the private sector, government, and academia and civil society. We know that working with the private sector is key to ensure that we're preparing the future workforce adequately. We can't do it without the private sector. We want women to not only be competitive in today's economy, but in the future economies as well. However, this isn't something we can do in a day or in a year. It requires a long-term commitment. And I think when we're talking about public-private partnerships, you bring the expertise, and perhaps you can say even the foreshadowing that the private sector can see coming into the industry, but then the public sector sits in a really good position to be able to help sustain that long-term commitment through engagement of government leaders, through pushing of initiatives, through convening of other NGOs, CSOs. So here at the department, we're very committed to working with the private sector and through these partnerships being able to reach and support global women's economic empowerment. Recognizing, as we mentioned, that the pandemic has accelerated the adoption of new technologies and digitalization, many of our upcoming programs here at the department and through the Power Initiative will focus on the systematic barriers that women are facing in digitalization. This includes a tech entrepreneur and engineering series that our post in Ecuador, our embassy in Ecuador, is leading this month. Our colleagues in the U.S. Embassy in Kosovo just hosted roundtables with the business community on women in the ICT, international communications and information and communication technology sector. We have an amazing partnership with the UN International Telecommunications Union to directly look at how we can, address the digital gender divide. And that organization has representatives from governments from all over the world. But one that is very exciting is our partnership with Google, actually. As you know very well, Rana, we've been working really hard on this one called the Women's Tech Founder Program. And so I'll give a little bit, but maybe if you want to dive into the details, this is a partnership that's going to allow us to do exactly what I described earlier. We are utilizing the expertise in the industry that Google has. We're bringing that together to then also use our diplomatic tools and work with our embassies and countries in the Middle East for this iteration of the program to raise it to the highest levels of government and get women access to both technical and soft skills training to advance their businesses. Rana, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. I think this is like such a great example of a public-private partnership because it's a programmatic partnership, right? It's a partnership in which we've been working together from beginning to end, right, to launch, really drawing on the expertise that your team has, that our team at Google has, and bringing women in the industry together, leveraging kind of those different perspectives, also bringing in ministers and key opinion formers in a way that will up-level the conversation around women in tech. And so we're really excited to be bringing together 50 women through this program for 4 weeks, to be training them in technical skills, to be providing them opportunities to network and to get connected, to providing them opportunities in mentorship as tech founders, and really building their capacity to be able to be more effective as founders, as CEOs, as CTOs, leading their companies as engines for economic change and economic opportunities in their region. And we're excited that this is, we're kicking off our flagship program next week, which is like, I'm so stoked about. And you can learn more about this actually on the Power website. And the application will be out too. So if you know someone who might be interested specifically in the MENA region, and we're using this as a flagship opportunity, which we'll hope to scale moving forward to other parts of the world as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking to expand it. So to our friends in Europe and other parts of the world, if you're interested, please reach out because we're looking to see how we can expand this, and we'll need more partners in doing it. So Rana, I want to kind of turn to you and talking a little bit more about how you think the private sector organizations should think about engaging with public sector. I mean, I know we are connected, but how can we encourage more communication between private and public sector?
I mean, from my experience in the way in which we have worked with different government entities and multilateral institutions in the past is like, I see and we see a lot of these actors within civil society, within public sector, as really being our ears on the ground, right? As being the pulse, right? That allows us to not only implement programs, but also scale programs in a way that has more reach, that has more impact. because you all are experts, right? You understand a lot of the need, you understand the policy implications, you understand where the gaps are, and we could provide the technical expertise, we could provide some of the funding, right? We could provide the training that will fit what you're seeing and the research that you've been doing, right? And the ways in which you've been engaging with government actors. And so I see partnership opportunities as opportunities for scale. I see it as opportunities to sustain deep relationships across our different entities, and I see it as an opportunity for innovation, right? Like, I don't think that this program would have come to life if it were for the relationship that we've built. I don't think this program would have come to life and impacted the lives of 50 women, right, if it weren't for kind of the our both of our openness and willingness to really come together and make this happen. And so that's how I see the importance of public private sector partnership.
Yeah, that's a great response. And I think, one of the reasons that we were able to come together is because this conversation initiated as a sharing of information on what each side is doing. So the more communication we can have, the more events or gatherings we can have where we can bring folks who are involved in this space to the table to talk about what they're doing. I mean, knowledge is power, and it just starts first with like informing each other of what we're all doing. And so with that in light, I kind of wanted to also highlight some programs and approaches the State Department has, and also turn to Google as well to talk a little bit about what they have been working on, some programs they have that have led to greater investment in women and supporting women specifically in their economic ventures. So at the U.S. Department of State, we look at this issue from a number of different offices and perspectives, and we have several programs focused on women's economic empowerment, supporting women entrepreneurs. And as you mentioned, we all come from this at a different angle. And I think two really great examples of programs that are unique to kind of being public sector heavy programs, but have done some great work. One is the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, or WeFi, that is housed at the World Bank, as they are the secretariat, but it is really run by a governing council comprised of, I believe it's 14 different countries, the US being one of them. And another is a program through our Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs called the Academy of Women Entrepreneurs and Girls Empowered, and Women and Girls Empowered, another program there, where we're looking to help women entrepreneurs and business leaders around the world access training and mentorship and networks, in addition to capital and financial literacy through partnership and collaboration with the development finance institutions such as the World Bank or the Interdevelopment Bank or the Asian Development Bank, in coordination with civil society organizations, a lot of whom are probably watching today, to ensure we're doing this in the best way we possibly can, safeguarding against issues that we want to have lessons learned from what the work has been done in the past. We also have innovative programs such as She is Great, which stands for Supporting Her Empowerment, Girls' Resilience, Enterprise, and Technology. Also the WeSci program, which is a Women in Science and Tech Girls. All these programs are interweaving STEAM education with economic development skill sets to help enable women and girls to advance regardless of the barriers they face. So these programs are looking at issues you have at the educational level, gender-based violence issues, community concern, social issues, but also the basics of just business and economic development, financial independence. It's a really great, unique kind of culmination of that. And then we have two really great examples of more public-private partnership program-driven programs. The first is the Global Initiative through Science and Technology, called GIST, which works to engage, train, and amplify voices of women-led science and technology startups in emerging economies in the world. And finally is the initiative that's near and dear to my heart, because I lead on it, the Power Initiative, where we're looking to work with the U.S. private sector to develop innovative public-private partnerships, looking at different types of frameworks, not what we're typically used to, such as the one we have with Google, to ensure that women have the skill sets and access to those professional networks that they really need. It's not just enough, as the WeFi initiative at the World Bank has noted, having access to capital is a major issue, yes, but in order to leverage that capital, you need to have access to the right networks and partners in your industry, your business industry. So we work on helping establish that ecosystem. So Rana, I want to turn to you as what are some programs that Google Women Tech Makers is doing, and after that, maybe also if you have examples of some great women entrepreneurs that you've met through your line of work.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to say, I always feel very impressed when you talk about all the work that you all do, because it's so important. I think particularly right now, right, when we're thinking about the implications that the pandemic will have on women in the economy, on women and women's safety. And, you know, it feels really good to have a partner that's really on the front lines doing this work. So I'm happy to talk about Women Tech Makers. As I mentioned before, Women Tech Makers is committed to our community. We are a very grassroots community of about 900 women that span 193 countries. And these women organize different events, different meetups, different training programs that reach around 200,000 women every single year through technical trainings, through programs. Some of these programs also include travel grants, scholarships, and just, you know, technical opportunities from a lot of our product area partners. So for example, last year we had a focus on TensorFlow and machine learning, and we were focused on training women who are part of our network. And we reached something like 70,000 women in the industry, across the industry, just exposing them to different parts of this product and different trainings focused on this product area. In particular, a program that's near and dear to my heart that we run also is the Women's Online Safety Program, which, as I mentioned before, is focused on really, fighting against this pervasive issue of online violence facing women. So we host hackathons where we bring together women technologists from across the globe to hack at the issue of women's online safety, and we do online training for women's safety. We also do a program called, we have a podcast that we recently launched called Founded, which highlights the stories of women tech entrepreneurs. And please go find Founded on Google Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast, because these women are super inspiring. We just recently launched a story of a woman called Shelly Bell, who founded Black Girl Venture, who also is like a computer scientist and developer herself. And she hosts these incredible marathon events where women come together and they actually pitch their ideas and have the opportunity to win funding and acquire funding for their startups. As an example, we have women who are at the intersection of healthcare and tech, women who are fighting climate justice using technology, climate justice issues using technology, data privacy issues using technology, and it's really, really inspiring. So I urge you all to find Founded on your podcast and hopefully listen to it when you have the time.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I'm a subscriber and I really love it. And as during these times, crazy times of COVID-19, and then having to balance everything in life, teleworking, sharing an office with your partner that is not a space that perhaps you should not, it's too small for an office. Podcast is a lot of fun to just kind of think of something else and also be inspired by a lot of the great work that's being done out there. So we're nearing the end of our time, and maybe we can take a few minutes just to kind of reflect on what are we looking forward on women's economic. Looking forward, what is it on women's economic empowerment that we see that needs to be addressed, especially at the intersection of the public and private sector? So I'll turn to you, Rana, if you want to.
Great. So whenever we talk about our vision, right? Our vision for Women Tech Makers is always thinking about how we're building an industry and a tech space, right, where all women can thrive, right? Where all women can feel like they can enter it, they could stay in it, they can build technology, right? They could feel empowered to do so. They could feel like they could grow in their careers. They could feel supported in their careers. And we're always building towards that vision. And we do in some ways, like in our micro spaces. And in order for us to do that, we know that we have to be in partnership, right? We have to do this alongside people who have the expertise oftentimes that we might not have. We have to do it with people who are, connected to communities we might not be connected to. And that's really what I'm looking forward to, is especially kicking off this program with you all, that we continue to engage in this way and we continue to grow relationships across private and public sector. How about you? I want to know.
And that's hard to top that. That was a good wrap up. I think, one thing, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I feel very privileged and honored to be able to work with the U.S. private sector, your colleagues like yourself, the amazing work that's being of an engineering background, and really do see like the need that is in the STEM and tech related industries, and the incredible talent and potential that there is with women entrepreneurs, the vision, the perspective that we bring in developing a product, not as just a consumer, but just that different perspective makes a big impact on how that product is used. And so it's such a privilege to work on this issue. I also want to just flag out to that all of the issues around gender equality cannot just be solved through economic empowerment, right? That this is a tool, especially public-private partnerships. This is one tool to address certain topics, but there's so much work that needs to be done out there, and we need to, as we are trying to work across our different sectors, we also need to work across our different disciplines, from the social sciences to the hard sciences. Things as you brought up, safety online. That is not something that me as someone who is an environmental engineer could speak to, but I need to work with folks in different sectors because there are just a vast amount of problems. So keeping in mind that we've done a lot, we have a lot of great tools, but we need to also think as the problem as holistic, and all the other areas that we need to bring attention to it as well to really make it sustainable. Before we wrap up, I've seen a couple of questions about, how can we learn more about what's going on and everything. We are happy to visit the Power website and the Google Women Tech Makers website for information about everything that we've talked about. Those are in our bios, I believe. But also, we will be launching the Women Tech Founders Program website come Monday. So that will be available next week. That's not on right now, so we can't share it. But please check in, and we're happy to. All right, Rana, thanks so much for joining.
You.
And thank you to the Nordic House and our partners there. This is for giving us some space and time to talk about this. And we really look forward to seeing where this conversation goes.
Yep. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Okay.